Well, we're gonna go ahead and get this chopper in the shop. We've got some things to do to it, and it's rather cold out, and this is a real cold-blooded unit. So we'll get this running, get it down to the shop, and then we can start working on it here. Well, we'll go ahead and get rid of this head. I don't need that on the chopper. Now, hey, somebody asked, you know, hey, what's going on with Garrett's green Mac? Well, there she is. She's waiting to come in the shop. It's still running. We just haven't been using it. The engine that came out of the Freightliner that he had, which he scrapped, is setting up here on the other side of this old cattle trailer. I don't know what he has plans to do with that. He talked about rebuilding it, but he cut the frame right in under the cab. We'll put this chopper head right next to it here. And left the front wheels in underneath it, and there she sits. So we'll just set this down right here, and we can get this down in the shop, get it inside, and start working on it here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out. I might not be able to get out from underneath this here. The back end, yeah, I got to pull up. The back end of the chopper is up in the air, down. The back end of the chopper is too low, and it causes the front of the chopper to be too high. So we'll see if we can get out from underneath this now. The jacks will probably sink down in the ground, and I think that might work. Yeah, we just made it out from underneath there. It'll probably sink in the ground enough, then by the time it comes time to put the head on the chopper, the tires will be warmer and the chopper will be higher, so that'll be a pain in the butt. So let's go ahead and get this in the shop and start working on it. So we've got the chopper inside here, and we have a whole pile of parts that are sitting in front of it here. We ended up having Kaz come over, and they kind of did an inspection of it. John Deere has a whole list of things to check on each and every chopper, and then there's a different list to look down through depending on how many hours you have. Now, we did have problems with this bracket breaking that holds the motor, the hydraulic motor for the fan dust blower unit that grabs debris off the air cleaner and it sucks the stuff off of the rotary screen. They have since updated that. We've got a bunch of brackets over here on the bench. We have to do some retrofitting to get these brackets to go in there. Some of this stuff is what they have now on the 9000 series chopper. The 8600, the model that was the next size lower than this, is different. And some of the 9000s are different than this one. So we have to decipher through that paperwork there and illustrations on what we need to do as far as cutting and drilling and welding and every other damn thing. So Kaz came over, and when they did their inspection, they did find some things that I didn't notice right away, but in John Deere's list of things to do, they said, you know, you got to check for this, that, and the other. One of the items was this bracket for the alternator. So that's got a crack in it. That was one of the things that was on the list. We've got a new bracket here to go on there. Now, there's some other items too that we don't need to put on right now. We did get the parts so that we could take advantage of the discount. A couple of hoses here are dry rotted. We're going to go ahead and replace those. I didn't really like them at first. I was going to let them go, but on John Deere's list of things to do, you know, they said to check those out, and I said, well, if they want them checked, we better replace them. We have the stone sharpening unit. We've got to pull that apart and more or less rebuild it. It is a little loose in there. We've got some parts here for that. We have a plate that goes on the back of the blower that we're not going to put on until after first cutting, and then we've got a pile of blower paddles and whatnot like that in here. We've got some other parts, hoses and whatever for that dust collection system. We're going to change the oil on the Pro Drive unit as well. We did blow a fan belt, which we've got one on the floor and we've got one up in the cab. We blew a fan belt chopping corn, and I was going to leave the belts that are on there, but Rich had noticed that there was a crack in one of them. It is a double yet a single belt. It's two belts kind of molded into one. What we have on there now is a couple of single belts from Napa. So we'll go ahead and get the regular belt on there, but we might as well go ahead and get started on what we need to do here. So we've got everything over on the bench here. Here is the blower assembly here, which we have rebuilt this already. We put new bearings in there, new fan blade, all that stuff. Here is the old bracket that bolted to the side of the radiator. John Deere just redid these parts here just a little while ago. This is the first part or the first update that Kaz has sold through their store. So they ended up ordering this bracket here, which I welded the old one. So we do not need this one, but this is how this went together. This was bolted to the radiator. The bracket that I welded bolted to here, the support bracket. It kind of came in underneath this blower assembly. Turn it over one hand. It's got 4 bolts there that matched this bracket. And then this bracket that had the hydraulic motor on it, which stuck in right here like that, that bolted too. This bracket here that has broke on us 3 times now. So they ordered us a new one, which is the old style. This bracket, even if we were going to use it again, the one I welded is fine. So this is the old bracket, old style bracket that we had trouble with in the past. And what happens is these little bushings right here, they get chafed enough, they end up coming out of the spot they're supposed to be in. Then this bracket, it's steel, but it's almost like it's pot metal, works against this pin. And then what usually happens is the pin gets working on itself and it wears off this cotter pin, and the pin walks out, the bracket cocks sideways, and it does not do a good job. The belt is pushed in there, and then there's a spring that goes from here to there, and that keeps the belt tension on it. So we're not going to be using these parts. We're going to send that back. We're going to send this bracket back. This bracket here, we're just going to go ahead and throw it away. We're not using that. Here is the updated system here. So this is going to bolt in the place of this bracket. We'll walk over to the chopper, kind of show you where that's going to go. That's going to go right there. And we lack some hardware. This bracket here is the bracket that hydraulic motor bolts to, and that is going to hinge from, I think I have that right. It's going to hinge. No, it's going to go, I think I'm backwards here. But at any rate, it's going to go something like this, I think. So we'll get back to you here. Alright, so we are back with you. This bracket here is going to hold that hydraulic motor. And that's going to set on here, something like that there. And then the spring is going to hook between these two points here. We lack some hardware to go in this main pivoting area. There's a couple of bushings. Looks like it's probably using a 10mm bolt, carriage bolt, in each side of that unit there. And then this hydraulic motor will bolt to that plate just like that. So we've received like, well, I can't remember how much this stuff costs. I'll have to look these parts up, but I want to say this bracket alone was $500 and some. But there's not much to this one here. And obviously this one's no good if we have broken 3 of those. So we're going to go ahead and get this stuff bolted into place, and we'll show you what things look like once we get things bolted into place. They gave us longer hoses to run from the supply, there's 2 supply hoses and a case drain. And then we have to reroute the air hose coming off of that air cleaner. It's going to go in up in there somewhere. We have to cut a hole up in the sheet metal at the top, and then it's going to drop down through the sheet metal here down into the actual dust collector blower itself. So we just got some hardware to put in and some stuff to hook up, and then we'll be back with you here. Well, we have the main frame bracket in place. We've got the blower reinstalled, and then there's this support bracket that goes over. It kind of holds the end of the blower to the main support bracket. Now, you do not need to take the blower out. You can leave the blower right in the chopper. For any of you that are doing this job on an 8700 or an 8800, you can leave the blower in place. The reason why I removed it, I already had it all rebuilt. I had it back in there. I removed it because they want us to reroute the hose going into that blower coming from the air cleaner. And they've got me coming down through that top right there. I've got to drill a hole there and then up top. I thought the orientation was going to change. In other words, I thought it was going to be reclocked. That's why I took it out. I bolted that bracket into place, and then I brought the blower over. I couldn't get the blower in with the bracket on there, so I'd take the bracket off, put the blower in, put the bracket back up there to see how that was, and lo and behold, that blower is in the same orientation as it was when we took the old bracket off. So we lack hardware to bolt this bracket. I've got the hydraulic motor itself bolted to the bracket that's going to bolt to the other bracket. Because this hydraulic motor has changed its orientation around, they gave us longer hoses to install. So we're going to remove the old hoses, put our new hoses on. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to go with the exact clocking of these fittings. This one fitting looked as though it needed to be turned just a little bit, but I want to get the hoses on there and see how that responds to that. And then basically I could just put it up in there and put a couple of makeshift bolts in to hold it in place, and then when the hardware gets here that we need, I could just kind of swap that stuff out. The hoses are going to route down through. I would have thought the old hoses would have worked, but we're going to put the new ones on. I would have thought I would have thought the old hoses would have worked. They're going to route through there and then hook up to our 3 ports there. So we need to adjust a few things, and we'll get the motor up installed in there and see what that looks like. Jared's working on this 6,000 gallon noon tank. A few weeks ago they ended up putting all new tips on it, replaced a couple of hoses, and they put that manifold bank up on the top there. Now anybody that's running Dietrich tips and boot that goes on the back, I don't know why they haven't done this yet, but we weld this piece of flat bar on there with a 5/8 hole in it, and we secure this metal boot to the top of the tip itself. It's bolted to the bottom, then it's got a little peg here that keeps it from coming too far forward, but it moves around too much. And we just started doing that, being that there was a bolt hole there. These tips need to be made with a piece of flat bar on there, but we have to cut and weld them. They cleaned this tanker out a while ago. They put a new box on the front, and Jared just put the fan assembly back into it, and then he went ahead and put a new gauge on here so that he can kind of watch the that goes through the down pressure on yeah, that's not the brake gauge. No, yeah,
this is down pressure.
Yeah, so we could put a certain amount of down pressure on the injector in the back. We only run, what is it, about 800 pounds?
1,000, yeah.
1,000? So that it keeps it in the ground, and then this gauge was mounted down in here, and you can't see it from the tractor, so we put it up here. Our guys ain't gonna watch it anyways, but at least when we question them, we can't get, we don't have to worry about them saying, oh, I don't know, I can't see it. Me don't know, me fully don't know. So, we've got some things to do here, and we'll join back up with you in a little while. This job is going a lot easier than I thought. I thought we were going to be cutting and welding and doing all that stuff. These directions are starting to make sense now, but this is kind of like working on the corn planter all over again. We got all these illustrations here, and I got with Kaz, and they got with their territory rep, and the territory rep emailed them actual color pictures that I was able to look at because I can't read. So so let's go ahead and swap out some hoses. Well, we have our hoses in place, coming down and around and up to the actual hydraulic motor. We have the pulley just sitting on there. I'm waiting for hardware to mount this bracket here that holds the motor to this main frame bracket here. So this is just basically sitting on there. I wanted to get the orientation of my hoses correct, and I've got that just setting into place. So we're waiting for some hardware. Right now what we have to do is we have to drill a couple of holes in the side of the chopper. We've got to drill one coming in the back side there so that this hose can be routed up through there, and then we're going to drill another hole in this sheet metal here to bring the hose down through to get into the actual blower itself. So we're going to go ahead and drill some holes, and we've got some material to cover up the sharpness of the metal, and then we've got to lengthen this hose here. We'll have to put a coupler in it. We'll have to cut it, put a coupler in it, and then put the two hoses together. Well, we have our hose assembled. Now all we need to do is just get our hardware into the bracket that actually holds this hydraulic motor. I've got to get those parts yet. We do not have those currently right now. But we've got this hose hooked up. This protective material worked out very good to fill in the holes and kind of protect this hose here. So once these parts show up for this blower assembly, we can get these bolts in. We'll run it, make sure it doesn't have any goofy vibrations to it, which it should not. But this went together a lot easier than I thought, other than that hole not being quite, not quite getting the right measurements for that, but it is gonna work out very nicely here. So we'll join up with you here in a few minutes once the parts show up here, and we can get this back together, bring this panel down, and then work on the rest of the chopper here. So we're actually waiting for some parts to go together here to finish putting this together. And what we have is like a nylon or a plastic bushing that's going to go into this frame, and then there's a steel bushing that's going to come in from the back side like that. And this frame assembly is going to do all of the pivoting from there. So it's got some nicer features to it than what the old bracket had. So they do have in this, well, this pivoting area, there is a countersunk area for this bushing to set into. It's got a lipped like washer on there. So we need to pound that other one in from this other side. Then we can, I'm gonna have to pull this pulley off to get the bolt in. But once we can get that all together, then we will be good to go. We'll get our spring hooked up. And then we can get our panel on here and go to the next job. All right, we've got our hardware in there. We've got a nice pivot point now. Got our spring hooked up. Now all we need to do is get the pulley on there, get this pulley nut tight, and put our belt on, and then we can bring that panel down and get this bolted into place, and then that'll do it for this job. Now this spring isn't as heavy duty as the other spring that was on there, but their thinking might have been that the spring that was used prior might have had too much tension to it, or being that the geometry of this bracket is a little different, maybe it doesn't need to be as heavy duty. So we'll go ahead and get things wrapped up here.
We're on a grinder wheel. What's our battery? Our battery's spanked.
Well, there we go. That's what that looks like. This does have plenty of tension to do its thing there. I'm fairly confident that this design is going to hold together. At least we hope so. So we'll go ahead and bring this panel here down and get it kind of put into place here. Well, that is going to conclude this job of putting that bracket in for the blower suction motor thing. So we're going to move into doing the rest of the work on this chopper now. So that is going to do it for this video. I want to thank you for watching, and we will catch you at the next one.